Salam Media.
And for the past month, we would obviously like to get you in a better space, not just only with the spiritual side of things, but also with your well-being. And so today we're going to be discussing, of course, with Yuri Bhaga. He's a registered dietitian offering compassionate, scientific, and easy to implement nutritional advice, practical interventions, and foodie ideas to keep you at your healthiest and happiest. And how diabetics can fast for Ramadan, other holidays, or even surgery. Fasting requires special planning to avoid the risk of low blood sugar. And of course, this is what Yuri is going to be speaking to us about today, about how to look after yourself when you're suffering from diabetes, and to have, should we say, a good fast, but not a difficult one. Hello, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we were so excited to have you on the show this afternoon. Having to chat to you about things that are so impertinent and important. But talk to us a little bit about yourself before we go into the actual subject.
Oh, well, I'm a registered dietitian. I've been in private practice for just over a year now. So I'm finally finding my footing. And, I'm really passionate about just nutrition education. I always think sort of it gets put on the back burner and people sort of undermine how important nutrition can be in sort of preventing long-term disease down the line. I mean, prevention over cure is sort of my go-to saying. And so, yeah, I always grab the opportunity to be able to reach a wider audience such as this.
It's so nice to know that there's somebody out there that is interesting in helping people out, and I think that are suffering. And I think a lot of us don't realize the seriousness of a person that has diabetes and the types of repercussions that can occur if you don't look after your health properly and don't follow a proper diet.
Yes, exactly. I mean, diabetes is one of those chronic diseases that sneak up on people, and often when they get the diagnosis, it's a huge thing. It can be life changing, but it doesn't mean you can't live a full life. The key is obviously getting over that denial. Many patients, I've had when they've been told by their doctors, you have diabetes, and the doctors don't have time to really get into it and counsel and get into how you can manage it and live properly and completely normally. And so after getting through that, denial phase and accepting it, it's just really learning the techniques that works for you, your family, your routine, and, just making it work while still enjoying your food and going about your day-to-day activities.
Yeah, I so understand what you're saying. And that's what it's about. It shouldn't actually affect your daily life and what you can do for yourself. So it's having to follow a proper diet and, of course, look after yourself. And now that we know it's Ramadan, a totally different take that's going to happen. Let's talk to us about it and what people should be doing, how they should be planning themselves with the fasting month ahead, especially for, people that have very serious forms of diabetes. As we know, there's different stages and forms of it. How to go about planning it and looking after themselves to the best of their abilities, but also because, I mean, we know a lot of people want to actually get the benefits of the fast.
Exactly. So it's a tricky one though, because I mean, for even a healthy person, let's say they don't have diabetes, the fast is quite a big change, and that'll have the benefits in terms of what you gain from the fast. It's cleansing. You get to pay more attention the spiritual side, but in the physical sense, lots of people in that first week they have the headaches and it's this and it's difficult. And then when you throw in a condition like diabetes, it really it has to be done with a lot of care and sort of pre-thinking. So ideally, before the Ramadan even starts, patients with diabetes should actually be in contact with their diabetic team, whether it is your doctor, your nurse, whoever you've been working with for your diabetes management, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. So I can give you general guidelines, but diabetes is one of those. It's a very individualized sort of care for each person because everyone's going to be different. You might be taking tablets and insulin, and if that's the case, my guidelines would be different for you versus if you were only on insulin, if you're type 1 or type. So ideally you should, be thinking about it beforehand, going to your doctors, your dietitian, your nurse, chatting to them, and then seeing and making an informed decision about, how would you go about it, should you be going about it, because obviously everybody that is able is, the fast is obligatory, but there are exceptions, and diabetes is actually one of the exceptions for participating in the fasting during Ramadan. And that is because it may actually have the opposite effect. It may actually cause harm to you, and that is completely not the point of participating in the fast. So you really have to weigh up, the benefits of participating in the fast, and then, will you have detrimental health effects if you do that, which, you don't want. So that's a very personal choice, but should you decide then there's a few things you need to consider. How long have you had the diabetes? Are you comfortable in your management? Are you comfortable with, your medicine regime? If it's something very new to you, you might still be getting used to when to take the tablets, checking your glucose throughout the day. Maybe if you're injecting, you're still a bit nervous about that. You might be skipping, you might be forgetting to do it if it's a new thing. However, if you've been a diabetic, for many years, that means you should have a good control in it. You know your body, you know the signs of when you may be high or low. You're comfortable in your medicine, and you have a good relationship with your diabetic team, and you're not afraid to ask questions and, maybe change things around, and you're comfortable to do that maybe without direct support. So, it depends on the individual. Do you have a support system? All of that.
So one important question, Yuri, is, and I think a lot of people would be asking that question, when you do the sugar test, you have to, of course, prick your finger, and then there's blood that comes out from there. Would that affect your fast as such? Because, as we know, there's certain things that do break your fast and certain things that don't.
Right. So the finger prick is, just testing your blood sugars. So there's nothing going into you. However, what would be breaking your fast is if you would be giving insulin. So if you are someone that's on injections and you would have to inject during the day, let's say you're having a serious high, and if you have to inject, that would constitute breaking the fast. But something like testing your blood sugars, that would not break your fast, and you'd be able to continue, just sort of to monitor. So, yeah.
On a general consensus, people that are like borderline diabetic and that are not very seriously diabetic, what sort of regime would you give them as far as fasting is concerned? What is it that they can eat that might help them during the day to, of course, sustain their energy levels, but also, not affect their sugar levels all that much?
Right. So we actually say, lots of dietitians will say everybody should be on the diabetic diet because it is just the general good go-to healthy diet because it focuses on, whole unprocessed foods, limited added sugar, and those complex low GI carbs, so lots of fiber. So that is to say, that morning meal, don't be skipping meals. You don't want to be skipping. So obviously this is now out of the fasting period, just as a general. But you want to regularly. You don't want to be leaving long gaps, one day you're having 3 meals, then the next day you're only having 1 meal. It's very confusing, especially if you're pre-diabetic, because this is going to sort of create havoc with trying to manage those blood sugar levels, especially when you're trying to go to, you don't want to go over into being then just as diabetic. So you want to focus on whole grains, lots of fiber, fruits and veg, the slow release carbohydrates. So your whole grain bread, brown pastas, brown rices, play around with the whole grains. There's so many nice ones on the market now, the bar, oats, stuff like that. And we want to sort of be staying away from those very sugary and refined treats that we all love.
And strangely enough, that's what happens is because when you're fasting, you tend to your body tends to feel for different things. And then, and it happens to non-diabetics as well. And you end up eating a lot of other things that you really shouldn't be having.
Yes, no, that's a very common one, because you've had a whole day and it's all, obviously with COVID, it's a bit different, but it's time for family and sort of, it's a more festive feeling. So all these sort of foods that aren't usually on the table, they're out in abundance. And while it's obviously fine, and because foods are more than just fuel, they are related to culture and tradition. We want to offer them and you want to enjoy them. as we always say, it's all in moderation. So, instead of having a plate full of only these nice sweet treats and savories and, samosas and things, have a few to start off with, but don't let them, make up your entire meal. You still want to be saving space for a good balanced meal with lots of veggies and whole grains and, some proteins. So, I mean, you can include them. You just need to be mindful of things. Of course. And then I think beverages is a big one because we don't always realize how much sugar we might be getting in from the things we drink. And waters should always be, should just be next to you at all times. Because
because I know habit would be people are always going out for those fizzies and also the juices. Let's quickly talk about the juices because I think there's some of the juices that diabetics can't have, not realizing the amount of sugar content in there. Because I think we pick up a juice and thinking it's healthier as opposed to having a fizzy drink, but not realizing the type of sugar content that it might have.
Oh, yeah, I love this question because I think it's just sort of because it says fruit juice and the connotation with fruit is health. So you think, okay, it must be healthier than a cool drink or a Coke or whatever. But because it's so concentrated and it has been processed, and oftentimes, unless it says 100% fruit juice, no sugar added, they might actually add other sugars to it. So yeah, fruit juice really isn't the best, definitely for a diabetic. And that is basically, any fruit juices. And if you are going to be having fruit juice, it should be not every day and it shouldn't be your go-to drink. And if you're going to, if you really feel like you need a glass, just maybe with a meal, then dilute it with, 60 to 7% water, just so you're kind of getting that juice taste. I mean, for example, if you took a glass of apple juice and a can of Coke, they have almost the same amount of sugar. So by ingesting it, your body is not going to realize, oh, one's coming from a fruit that's been processed and one's just made in a Coca-Cola factory. To your body, it's just sugar. So it's going to have that same effect on the blood spikes. So yeah, fruit is definitely not a go-to.
Okay, so we're going to go for a quick break and then stay with us. We'll be back with you in a sec.
Sure.
Africa. Provide dignity, safety, and nourishment to millions of needy families in 14 countries across the globe this Ramadan by sponsoring towards the Africa Muslims Agency's More Than a Meal campaign. Sponsor a food hamper at 1,100 rands or an iftar suhoor meal box at 100 rands. Call Africa Muslims Agency on 011 834 8685 or donate at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
Ishmael, weren't you supposed to be in Umrah? No, man. With this new visa issues, I can't go every year. Yeah, I know. And now my wife, she on my case. She wants the Madina Kajur, Zamzam, Kawa, Dukkha, all the Suhur and Iftar stuff. Yee, I'm telling her, forget all that this year. What are you stressing about? Find everything at IG Hussein. Leave Ramadan shopping. You can also do all your Eid shopping one time. They got a wide range of Saudi and Dubai Islamic wear for the whole family. Eid gifting cannot get any easier. They have a wide range of perfumes, musalas, frames, and kiddies' educational toys, and much more. What? Are you serious? Ramadan and Eid shopping under one roof? Yeah, man. Now you can tell the wife no more excuses for not having homemade savories. Oh, what savories? More time for her ibadat, not for making savories. IG Hussein, Overport branch, open every Sunday and public holiday. IG Hussein, your Islamic lifestyle.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randeryjewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, a family name you can trust.
Engaging conversations, inspirations, and more. This is the Nafisa Dangle Show on Salam Media between 2 and 4 p.m.
Welcome back. And if you've just joined us, we're talking to Yuri Bhaga about creating a healthier version of yourself. if you're a diabetic during the month of Ramadan, and also being able to deal with that fast and go through it, and eat the healthier way and what sort of options to look for. But also, I think Yuri, thank you for coming back on air. The important question that I'd like to ask and of course pun on is, as you were saying, we get different types of diabetes, type 1, type 2. What should people look out for while fasting to know that it's going to actually affect their health, or that it's not good for them at some point? There's probably some things that they need to look out for to know that this is the time that I need to actually break my fast and stop at that point.
Right. So good question. So I think there's three things you need to look at, sort of like a risk scale. So who's more at risk should probably be more wary if they are going to be choosing to fast, and who's likely going to be okay. So if you are someone who has diabetes and it's not very well controlled, so you are someone where you'll check your sugar one day and it's fine, and the next day it's completely high, and there's just no real control. You're going to be someone that really needs to take very good care and need to be chatting with your diabetes team before starting the fast. Additionally, if you're someone who has had diabetes for a long time, maybe caught it late, got complications. And the complications are those, heart problems, heart issues, very common with diabetes. If you have maybe kidney issues, nerve issues, in your fingers and toes, if that sounds like, then there is a good chance that your doctor or healthcare professional may advise you not to fast, because managing your diabetes by the time you've reached that point, it's very uncontrolled and may actually lead to further detrimental effects. And if you do maybe then end up fasting, you could have, ramifications after the fact where you may have kidney problems, or you may actually be admitted into hospital. But if you are fasting and it's during the day, then there's three things you need to look out for if you're a diabetic, and sort of the signs tell you, okay, I may need to break my fast, just sort of so I can look after my health. And that will be your hypoglycemias, and everybody will have sort of different symptoms, and everybody should know more or less for them what those signs are. But more or less, if you are having a hypoglycemia, so that's your low blood sugar, irritability, if you're shaking, sweating a lot, dizzy, feeling faint, those are often signs that your blood sugar is reaching sort of dangerously low point. And at that point, you may need to break your fast and have a quick acting sugar, so, a sip of juice, a cool drink, a sweet, whatever your go-to thing is to get your sugars up quickly, you need to have that with you at all times. And that would be a case of where you need to break your fast, because obviously if your blood sugars dip too low, that can be very dangerous, and we don't want you to go, into a coma or anything like that. The second one is the hyperglycemia. So that is high blood sugar. And this is usually people who may be type 1 on insulin, or, type 2s on long-acting insulin. So long-acting insulin, the ones that you take at the beginning of the day and it lasts you through. If you are on those insulins, there's a good chance you may need to go to your doctor to change your regimen. You might need to take a little less. You might need to change your timing. But even so, you never know if it's a stressful day, it's a hot day, whatever. And if you start noticing those symptoms of hyperglycemia, and that is extreme thirst, may need to go to the bathroom more often, irritability again, abdominal cramps, sweating as well. If you start noticing that, then there are ways to kind of get your blood sugars down, and that is physical movement. So maybe early sort of into feeling the symptoms, take a walk, do something, physical, just so that you can sort of that down. However, if you test and it is, above 17 millimole per liter, that, your blood sugar reading is 17, then I think it's probably, even before that, you'll know what's high for you and what's high for not. But I mean, 17 is quite high. And I think that is the advice from the International Diabetes Association. If it is higher than that, then you may need to inject, and that also would constitute a fast. But again, in sort of supporting your health so that you don't cause any damage, it'll be well worth doing so. So there's no long-term complications. And then the last one is looking out for dehydration, and this is a very common thing. It's easy to become if you aren't getting enough fluids in between, the non-fasting times, and especially if you are diabetic, it's going to sort of make it harder to control your sugars, and you need to keep in mind, am I feeling more dehydrated than normal? A very dry tongue, all of that, feeling dizzy, and again, if that's how you're feeling, along with, you know, the symptoms of hypos or hypoglycemias, you know, have some water, have something to get your sugars right. So those are the things you can do
And
during
also
that.
a headache. Would a headache also be one of the symptoms that you'd actually
So
encounter?
it would have to be a severe headache, because headaches are sort of common for anyone in a fast. Because if it's a very hot day, and let's say you're someone who consumes a lot of caffeine, it may be a caffeine withdrawal headache. And
Yes.
again, this is sort of, you have to know your body. We know individually our bodies best, and you'll know if this is sort of just, okay, I'm getting into things, I'm not feeling so good, versus this is a piercing headache and I have this and this A, B, and C other symptoms. This doesn't feel normal. I think I need to make a plan about how I'm going to move forward and manage these things, because I'd always err on the side of caution and rather just, you know, do what you need for your health, because diabetes, if uncontrolled, it really can sneak up on you very quickly. And, you know, if it gets to a point where you are maybe in ketoacidosis, or if you have a super low blood sugar and you're very dehydrated, we really don't want you to have to end up in the hospital, especially now with COVID, or in any time.
Sure.
Avoid
Yes.
that at all costs, and it can be life-threatening.
Thank you. I think that's been some very valuable information for all those people out there that are diabetics and that are fasting, to be able to, should we say, find their regime of looking after their health
Yes.
and putting themselves in a better space. But what message would you like to leave us with this afternoon?
Well, yeah, I think if you are taking part in the fast, obviously your personal choice, lots of benefits, but don't forego your health at the risk of it. And, you know, speak to your team. I think that's the main thing. Know your limits. If you are uncomfortable with your management yet, you know, rather ask for help. And just be mindful with the foods you eat, and everything in moderation. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy the foods you are eating, and you don't have to fast. You just need to make sure you're taking your health into your hands and being proactive about managing anything you see.
That is so true. Thank you so much. It's been such an inspiration chatting to you. Very valuable advice that you've divulged to us. I want to thank you for taking the time out and joining us this afternoon. You do take care of yourself, Yuri.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yuri Bhaga giving us some good information. And of course, she is a dietitian on how to look after yourself better during the month of Ramadan. What's the regime to follow when you are a diabetic? And I think that was some very, very valuable information. Stay with us. We'll be back with Ricky and I after the break.